Okay, from the Holy Grail of Wisdom quotes by E.P. Rogers, we're continuing in alphabetical order. Graham Weaver, he's a guy who did an MBA at Stanford, business guy. He has a nice YouTube video about advice on business and life. Just a couple of quick quotes from him. Do something difficult, your thing. Do it for decades and you'll become one of the best in the world, if not the best. Suffering is inevitable, so do something that makes the suffering worth it. Okay, next is Daniel Webster. He was an American lawyer around the time of the Founding Fathers, and he says, whatever makes men good Christians makes them good citizens. Independence now and independence forever. If we abide by the principles taught in the Bible, our country will go on prospering. By the way, he was a lawyer. That was real common that lawyers were very well versed in the Bible. He says, but if we and our posterity neglect its instructions, the Bible, as an authority, no man can tell how sudden a catastrophe may overwhelm us and bury all our profound glory into obscurity. On the diffusion of education amongst the people rests the preservation and perpetuation of our free institutions. So basically what he's saying is the only thing that'll protect America and save America is if people study the Bible. And he's right. I can tell you, I know education as well as anybody in the world. I've studied it backwards and forwards, read hundreds and hundreds of books about education, thought about it for decades and decades. You have to have the Bible. You have to have Christian ethics. I don't care what religions you are, but you have to have Christian ethics. Otherwise, everything goes down into the dumpster. Because, almost all civilizations since the beginning of mankind have been ruthless dictator who says, do what I say or I'll kick your butt, and doesn't allow free speech and creativity. All right, he continues. If there be anything in my style or thought to be commended, the credit is due to my kind parents for instilling into my mind an early love of the Scriptures. And that's like exactly what John Ruskin said, the great art critic of the mid-1800s in England. God grants liberty only to those who love it and who are always ready to guard it and defend it. A strong impression that something must be done is the origin of many bad measures. If religious books are not widely circulated amongst the masses in this country, then I do not know what is going to become of us as a nation. If the truth be not diffused, then error will be. If God and His Word are not known and received, then the devil and his works will gain ascendancy. Well, isn't that what's happening right now? Same old story, Old Testament. If a country turns its back on God, God turns His back on that country. And USA has turned its back on God, and hopefully it's not too late. If the evangelical volume does not reach every hamlet, then the pages of a corrupt and licentious literature will. If the power of the gospel is not felt throughout the length and breadth of the land, then anarchy and misrule, degradation and misery will. Corruption and darkness will reign without mitigation or end. It's totally true. People like to joke about Christianity, criticize it, mock it, but it's the only thing that creates great art and music. It's the only thing that makes people free in the long run. An individual can think their way into their own little personal moral value system, but regular people can't do that. They have to have a moral code to run by, and if they don't have the Bible, they end up in this modern hedonistic Epicureanism. Okay, Noah Webster, he lived from 1758 to 1843, also educated as a lawyer, also a big believer that the Bible is the foundation of everything educational. He ended up making dictionaries. The Merriam-Webster dictionary comes from him. He translated the Bible from other languages. He's the father of American education. He said, education without the Bible is useless. I think that's true, too. If people don't have ethics, then they just use their education to rip people off or to take advantage of people. Like I said, I've seen all these lawyers that are totally corrupt, in the modern world. They're ripping off their clients, betraying their clients. And people sometimes criticize doctors, but doctors' ethics are way up here compared to lawyers' ethics. There's no comparison. Doctors mean well. They're just not well educated. American doctors are very ignorant. They don't even know the basics of the common diseases. But they do mean well. They'd like to help their patients if they could, if they knew what to do. Okay, continuing here, he says, every civil government is based upon some religion or philosophy of life. Education in a nation will propagate the religion of that nation. In America, the foundational religion was Christianity, and it was sown in the hearts of Americans through the home and the private and public schools for centuries. Our liberty, growth, and prosperity was the result of a biblical philosophy of life. Our continued freedom and success is dependent on our educating the youth of America in the principles of Christianity. So here's these guys that were around at the time of the Founding Fathers. And what do they say? The most important thing is to teach children the Bible. And I agree with that. And I agree with that based on extensive knowledge and education in the sciences. And I think the sciences are mostly kind of a joke for young people. I'm not a big fan of them. I tell you this because, for example, if you learn math without concrete examples, it's worthless. You forget everything. If you learn chemistry and biology just based on memorizing stuff to take a test, you don't remember it. So, you remember the Bible. You remember what you learned about the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans. That should be the foundation everything else is built on. And you see it in all these countries. They were a bunch of illiterate barbarians, and then they start learning the Bible. All of a sudden, they get good at everything in education. And look at Scotland in the 1700s as a good example. They just insisted on having the Bible taught in all the schools. All of a sudden, they became like the most educated country in the world. That's what happens. The people who read the Bible a lot become good at everything academic. Okay, Noah Webster continues. No truth is more evident in my mind than that the Christian religion must be the basis of any government intended to secure the rights and privileges of a free people. Our continued freedom and success is dependent on our educating the youth of America in the principles of Christianity. Okay, let's see. We got a little bit more left from Noah Webster. Okay, he says, education is useless without the Bible. The Bible is the chief moral cause for all that is good and the best corrector of all that is evil in human society. The Bible is the best book for regulating the temporal concerns of men. The Bible was America's basic textbook in all fields. God's word contained in the Bible has furnished all necessary rules to direct our conduct. The Christian religion is the most important and one of the first things in which all children under a free government ought to be instructed. And if you look at Northrop Frye, he's a pretty good scholar of the Bible and of history, and he said the first thing children should learn about is the Bible. Then after that, you should learn all about the ancient Greeks. And then after that, you can add everything else. And that's right. That should be the foundation, the cultural glue upon which everything rests. Okay, he says, let's see. Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as they are in almost every kingdom of Europe. The supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust rules by the sword because the whole body of the people are armed and constitute a force superior to any other. No truth is more evident in my mind than that the Christian religion must be the basis of any government intended to secure the rights and privileges of a free people. We shall convince men that they can only become free. Oh no, okay, so that's what Noah Webster had to say. I think that's my last quote by Noah Webster. And then I just had one more I added by Fyodor Dostoevsky. We shall convince men that they can only become free when they have given up their freedom. In the end, they will lay their freedom at our feet and say to us, make us your slaves, but feed us. Fyodor Dostoevsky from The Grand Inquisitor. All right, so anyways, what he's basically saying is, if you don't have a Bible education, you become a wimp, you blow in the wind. And what I would say, I would actually go beyond this. And because what I've seen is I have a bunch of Irish cousins, and they're just not smart enough to debate the Bible. So I don't think you can get people to be solid on apologetics just from education. Most people just don't have the mental oomph to be able to debate intellectual topics at a sophisticated level. And so I think what they need is emotional Christianity. Because I've seen, like I said, I got all these Puerto Rican aunts and relatives and all this emotional Christianity. I think it's better than intellectual. I love the intellectual thing, but there's not many people who can handle it. The emotional Christianity, anybody can handle it. And it makes them really strong in their emotion. Jesus Christ is their best friend, and that's not negotiable. And they're good. They're the nicest people. The best person I ever met in my whole life in the whole world was my mother. And she's like an emotional Christian. She doesn't quote the Bible too much. A little bit, not too much, but man, does she follow the letter of the law. Not the letter of the law, the spirit of the law, which is what matters. Anyways, hope you found that helpful.